Get us kicked off, and please welcome the Undersecretary of the Army, the Honorable Ryan McCarthy.
Good morning. You all are fortunate enough to have me introduce the Deputy Secretary of Defense, because if General Milley was up here for the next 5 minutes, you'd be hearing about the Red Sox and the fact that they've gone on to the American League Championship Series. But fortunately, I don't think he's speaking today, so we'll have to hear about that. We'll hear about that for the next several weeks as they continue the march to the World Series. I'm sure they're looking pretty good, but I think that General Ham's Cleveland Indians and my Chicago Cubs flamed out here early in the playoffs, but we can take solace in the fact that they made it to the playoffs because Secretary Esper and Sergeant Major Daley's Pittsburgh Pirates were mathematically out of it in June, I think, right? Well done. But football season has arrived, and my Chicago Bears are 4-1, and they defeated Secretary Shanahan's Seattle Seahawks in Soldier Field on Sunday Night Football. You guys got about $20 million worth of incompletions out of Russell Wilson. That was great. 2 words, Mr. Secretary: Khalil Mack. But I have the distinct privilege of introducing our speaker. Joining us today is our Deputy Secretary of Defense, the Honorable Patrick Shanahan. Secretary Shanahan is no stranger to the U.S. Army, as he was raised in the home of a decorated Army Vietnam veteran in the great state of Washington and our Pacific Northwest. A University of Washington graduate, then went on to earn 2 graduate degrees from the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. He progressed through the ranks, very quickly through the ranks of the Boeing Corporation, managing helicopter programs like the Apache and the Chinook helicopter, as well as other complex weapon systems like the airborne laser and mid-course missile defense. He made the leap from the defense side of Boeing to the commercial side, with stints running the 787 and 737 programs, thus culminating as a corporate officer, as Senior Vice President of the supply chain. And just as he reached the pinnacle of the corporate ladder, Secretary Shanahan walked away from the private sector, answering the call of the colors to serve in the Department of Defense. Secretary Shanahan and I met on the Hill, awaiting our office calls with senators and conducting murder boards during the crucible of confirmation. He has a dry sense of humor, a keen intellect, and always kept things light during a very stressful time for both of us. In the 14 months we've served together, I've had the privilege of working very closely with him on a wide range of issues. He has charted one of the most aggressive management agendas for the department in our history, and Secretary Mattis has tapped him to lead the implementation of the National Defense Strategy. In his first year, he was one of the principal architects of the DoD's FY18 and FY19 budgets, a deal that yielded a $22.5 billion increase to the top line of the U.S. Army. He has spent countless hours with the Army leadership team, helping us develop our modernization strategy, and he remains our staunchest advocate for the Army Futures Command. As we approach the final weeks of FY20 program review this fall, Secretary Shanahan will continue to lead the Department of Defense's efforts in making the transformational changes needed to maintain our edge over potential adversaries. We are blessed to have senior leadership team of Secretary Mattis and Secretary Shanahan, an extraordinarily accomplished warfighter and an equally talented businessman who are riding herd through very difficult terrain. These men are bringing cold, hard logic and bold decision-making to the department during this decisive time for our nation. Please join me in welcoming our 33rd Deputy Secretary of Defense, Patrick Shanahan.
It's clear Ryan wants something. Yeah. Must be budget season, right? Yeah. No, thank you, Ryan and General Ham. Thank you for hosting what is proving to be one of the more successful annual meetings in quite some time. And I've spent a number of years at AUSA, and I think in my own professional development, it was a really critical forum where I developed relationships early on that I draw upon today. And for many of the contractors and industry that are here today, thank you for your time and attention and your resources. There's a considerable amount of work that goes into putting these displays in place and really being able to educate the folks that don't have the time always to see your hard work and your capabilities. So let me do a couple of just thank yous before I get into my remarks. First, maybe call out as a thank you to the chief for not talking about Boston sports. I didn't realize the Red Sox played last night, but the real message I want to make about the chief and the secretary is they are tremendous partners, and I think what I appreciate most is the true teamwork, the transparency, and the alignment as we focus on implementing the National Defense Strategy. I know General McConville isn't here. I ran into him this morning, but the Vice and Secretary McCarthy are unwavering in their commitment, and when you talk about tenacity and energy and really driving the machine, your work is remarkable. I don't know, I know I ran into Sergeant Major Daly. He was modeling a new uniform. Is he here in the audience? I don't see him, but I want to do a shout out to him. One, for just the tremendous job he does in representing the voice of the soldier and the families, and he turns all of us into advocates. Chief, I have to tell you one thing. I avoid your end of the corridor, because every time I go down there, Sergeant Major Daly makes me do push-ups. So, and I know we have many leaders that from different levels of echelon. I mean, we know where the work takes place, and you are relentless. You make it happen every day, and well done. It's an honor to be a part of this team, particularly given my long-standing connection to the Army. I think Ryan pointed that out to a certain degree, but I spent many years building the helicopters so many of you have flown in Afghanistan, Iraq, and around the world. The only picture in my office is that of my father, who served in the Army, and that's one of the principal reasons that I chose to serve. Was raised in a family that prioritized service to country. To all the soldiers in the audience today, regular, National Guard, Reserve, Civil Service, and their families, thank you for your service. I'm honored and humbled to serve with you. At the Department of Defense, I serve as the Chief Operating Officer. My job is to execute the National Defense Strategy, which is characterized by 3 lines of effort. 1, build a more lethal force by restoring readiness and modernizing key capabilities. 2, strengthen our alliances and attract new partners because we are more lethal when we fight with them. And 3, reform the department for greater performance, accountability, and affordability. In that role, I'm focused on improving our performance and delivering the warfighting capability we need to win. And I'll just repeat that again. I am focused on improving our performance and delivering the warfighter capability we need to win. When it comes to performance, the question is not, are we getting better? It's, are we good enough to win? We must win against our competitors. So every day, wake up and ask yourself, what will it take to win? Before I dive into my remarks on modernization, I'd like to foot stomp General Milley's and Secretary Esper's comments on readiness and reform. When it comes to readiness, it can be easy to gloss over the details. But this isn't about changing a test or ordering bullets. Generating readiness is complex and multidimensional and involves everything from recruiting and training to equipment and munitions. I'd like to commend the Army for their holistic, integrated approach to ensuring soldiers are mentally and physically fit and as lethal as they can be. The Army has more than a vision and a strategy. They have a plan, and that plan gets better every day. When it comes to reform, the Army is serious and focused. Instead of saying slow down, they're pushing to go faster. And Secretary McCarthy, you and the Vice set the tone, and it's greatly appreciated. Army leadership is taking new approaches to healthcare, IT, and logistics, and scrubbing each and every Army program to ruthlessly prioritize spending and invest in modernization. This is the kind of focus we need to see throughout the department. The same is true of the Army when it comes to modernization, which is where I'd like to focus my remarks today. Because it's a heavy lift, and it is where we must concentrate our collective efforts. Modernization is about retooling for a new era of great power competition. Muscles we haven't used in quite a while. In contrast, our competitors have spent the last 30 years studying our way of war and building systems and doctrine to thwart it, eroding our conventional overmatch. That means it's time for us to get back in the weight room and back in the classroom. Some of our old playbook will work, but we have to deal with two new warfighting domains, cyber and space, and an increasingly blurred line between competition and combat. And as pressing as the threat is, we will not be handed a blank check. Fiscal discipline and performance will determine whether we will be able to execute our strategy. To develop next-generation doctrine, organization, and capabilities to deter Russians and Chinese, the Army created Futures Command and placed it under the command of General Murray, whose experience uniquely meets this challenge. General Murray, thank you for taking on this enormous responsibility. I may not have been here when the cavalry resisted replacing horses with tanks, an episode in DoD history the Secretary Esper mentioned on Monday, but I witnessed the struggles of the future combat system, and I'll never forget the day the Comanche was canceled. So just as General Milley is shaped by our lack of readiness in the Korean War, I'm informed by our failures with the Comanche. I recognize the inherent complexity in changing doctrine, innovating, experimenting, and successfully executing a program of record. Getting that mix right is what Futures Command is all about. And in designing it, the Army has drawn upon lessons learned. For the past 17 years, we have focused on the fight against violent extremist organizations, a focus that has driven efficiency and stovepipes with requirements, development, testing, acquisition, and production more federated than integrated. In order to modernize, we are restructuring that system. And with Army Futures Command, we will integrate technologists, operators, acquisition professionals onto cross-functional teams focused on one of the Army's 6 modernization priorities. These cross-functional teams work together, ensuring performance, executability, and affordability. Kudos for the Army for retooling its traditional structure to create something new. That said, it will take more than a thoughtful organization design to succeed. I've been fortunate to spend time with General Murray, and while we've discussed many ways to make Futures Command successful, I'd like to share a few key areas where I've committed to providing personal attention and support. First, we must focus on product and performance and only pursue capabilities that will dominate great power competition and win. Dominate and win. To ensure this, we must engage the soldiers early and often and shorten the development cycle. Better is the enemy of good enough. I'm always reminded of the approach to developing the iPhone. Apple was obsessively focused on the user experience, driving the product, while others focused on technology as the priority. We must be guided by what combination of man and technology generates the most lethality, never forgetting that man and technology are intertwined. This is not about developing the perfect weapon system. This is about delivering lethality to our soldiers as quickly as possible, which whenever possible means leveraging existing technology in new ways. Second, we must recruit the right people. We've all heard that before, but a handful of people will determine the outcome. It's the most critical responsibility of leadership and more important than technology. Their caliber, judgment, and diversity of ideas is paramount, and sets the culture for our generation. Futures Command can't be everyone's first rodeo. We need people that have successfully given birth to something new, with the knowledge and experience to innovate, make decisions, and execute a successful program. Those who are not afraid of bad news, problems, and hard decisions. Leaders who run to the sound of gunfire. We need technical, programmatic people, experienced leaders who can deal with ambiguity, technical detail, demanding stakeholders, and risk. We need leaders who can nurture a 25-year-old and a wild idea into disruptive reality and produce that idea at industrial scale affordably. Finally, we must make the acquisition system we have work for us. With Ellen Lord's leadership, the department will continue to improve, but we can't use its deficiencies as an excuse. We must use our acquisition system to solve problems. Army Futures Command is about our future. General Murray is our leader. We must do everything in our power to help and support him and his team. I've asked Pentagon leaders to take the role of supporting command, with Army Futures as the supported command. And I'm asking all of you to adopt the same mindset. We can't have people standing on the sidelines pointing out the score or if somebody has made a mistake. We need people suited up, on the field, tackling, bringing General Murray solutions instead of problems. To Congress, thank you for your trust, confidence, and support. You are an important partner in ensuring Future Command's success. To academia and industry of all shapes and sizes, help us innovate and scale affordably. To the Army and all members of the DoD family, integrate Futures Command into your processes, relentlessly hunt for the talent they need, remove obstacles from their path, advocate and build momentum for them within the building, throughout the government, on the Hill, and with industry. And focus on their output, not their process. This isn't just General Murray's project or the Army's. This is about defending the nation. So get your helmet, put in your mouth guard, get on the field, and tackle. And when you get knocked down, get back up and tackle again, because when we play together as a team, we win. Thank you. There you go. Good.